Hello, this is Gene. I want to talk today about a few things. Um, I was going to do the weekly cucks of the week, and maybe I'll call it this as well. But I was just thinking this morning: are we actually awoke in this country? Oh, we hear this term all the time about being awake if you've taken the red pill or black pill or white pill or whatever. And the question is, are we really awake about it? Are we doing anything about it? Just this whole week has been talking about Harvey Weinstein, and it seems how the right has so fallen over themselves to cover this thing. And instead of talking about things that are very important to our country when it comes to tax reform, Obamacare, either replace it or repeal it or do something with it to get health care to be better for everybody in the country. It is leading all of their topics. They're talking about him, but they don't want to talk about the other issues that are in Hollywood. They just go to the very top of it, and so many people on the left and on the right, especially, they bring up the good man scenario, and Bill Barr talks about this in his comedic stand-up, and I'll link it below, about basically the good man, when he talked about great men being taking their money taken away from them, like Kobe or Arnold Schwarzenegger or Tiger Woods, and then everybody comes out afterwards and just says, "I can't believe that it's so bad what this person did." So now we're seeing it all over Hollywood, and here I'm talking about it when I'm trying to say that we're not awoke enough to do what needs to do for this country. Nobody wants to go down to the next level of that. They don't want to talk about who actually funnels these women into his office. Almost all of them are from the same background. They know what he was. Obviously, we're find out now that he signed a contract with his own company, I guess, saying that if he ever got accused or something like that, he just pays a fine. He can still work with them. And he had different levels of this. One offense like $250,000. So he was okay to pay for all this because his fetishes or his behavior was so ingrained in him, and Hollywood allowed him and enabled him all these years. Now, I'm not here to say that this man is a good man. He's not a good man, and I would tell him to his face that he's horrible to people, regardless of their sex, because everyone has to say that everybody that he ever had contact with, if you're a man, that you must have known, that they're all enablers of them. So they blame the men, like Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, stuff like that. They blame them for not stopping him from doing it. The old thing of, you're the good man, you have to stand up. Like the NFL with their thing about it's on us to stop domestic violence, when half of them are women starting this shit. But these are important discussions to have when we talk about domestic violence. But having a quid pro quo in office somewhere saying that, yeah, I'll suck your dick if you give me this part, none of those people in that room has got my have my respect. They're both puppets of Hollywood, and they have no courage, no character whatsoever, and that's what they think it's okay. So they think it's part of the game, and I don't like it or don't like it, but when they turn around, these people in Hollywood that stands up on stages and trying to say the rest of this country are not progressive enough, and they're the ones that know what's right, even though they're the most vile, degenerate people in the world, that we have to listen to them. And then it's one of those whole things that people do. When you're talking about this all the time, and I'm sure Weinstein had a lot of different charities that were supposed to be for women's rights and stuff like that. So this projecting that happens all the time, that happens with people who are in the clergy that do things in the community and do things like that. And then we find out later on that they were, peddling with kids, and people that used to be, love everybody, but in real life that they have to do this to, I guess, make themselves better and take any type of review of their actions. So normally we find this out, that all these people did this and they're projecting their failures by saying, "Oh, women are this and this and that." But again, when I talk about being awoke in this country, the people that are red pill, it still seems that we get bogged down with what's going on in Hollywood, and we forget what really is more important. North Korea, the Iran deal, immigration, the wall. I mean, all this stuff, we just let it go by because this is more, exciting to see that the fact that a man had all this money, that women just clearly knew this, went inside there. Maybe some of them were naive. Most, I would say, they weren't. They knew that there was probably going to be a payment for them to get to the next level, because there are so many of them that come off the buses that are some of them look so good. I mean, we can have this discussion that the women right now that are the most famous females under 40 or 35, they aren't the greatest actresses of all time. I'm just sorry, they're not. And yet they command all this money, and then of course they want to be the continually victim, no matter what, when it comes to money. That apparently they had no agency when they were in that room with them. They couldn't just say, "Fuck that, I'm not going to do it," and walk out. And I guess because they were forced to do things like that, because they want to have their career to go on, that I should look at that as what? I don't know. They didn't tell the next person that was going to be in line with this. Of course they didn't, because they wanted to make sure their career was first in their line for them. No different than a man that tries to get to the top of the mountain. He will kill his friends just to get to the top of the mountain. And that's a character, maybe a character flaw in the human race. I don't think it is. I think that's usually the people that get to the top normally deserve it. Sometimes you're born into it, but that's not really the issue. But nobody wants to talk about underneath that. All these great people online talking about this, how bad he was, that he's about to kill himself. I mean, this is what happens to men, is that as soon as that comes, everybody turns their back on him. All these people that loved him all this time, even though it was an open secret that he was doing this, and they didn't give a shit about it, as long as they got the parts that they wanted, the money that they wanted, just like any NFL who's taking steroids, or any guy the MMA who's taking steroids, or anybody MLB that's trying to make steroids to make that next contract to make all that money. If it's you're a man, they're going to just say that you have this character flaw, and the feminists come out, and everybody comes out, and all these women are now coming out saying that this happened to me, and everybody's saying how courageous they are. And here I am, I'm talking about this again, but this is how insidious this is, that when there's real work to be done, whether it's saving the white race or Western civilization or immigration or anything else, we get sidetracked by watching this shit. And I've made 2 videos about it, so clearly I'm part of the problem as well. Clearly I don't have anybody watching me per se, but it's the same freaking thing. And we just got to get past it and not talk about it and just say he's a bad man and move on. I don't know what that means for him. I don't think he should go to jail for this unless we find out he actually raped somebody. But when people talk about how red-pilled we are in this country, and we still will go on here and talk about stuff like this and say that it's more important than DECA or the Dreamers or anything else that means something, subsidies for farmers or something that we never talk about, and I think the people at the top, they have a sacrificial lamb every 4 or 5 months or a year to take our away from things, to look a different way. And it's unfortunate, and in a lot of ways the president is the same way with the NFL thing. As much as I support his first statement on it, when he said, if I was owner, wouldn't you just like the fact that I would just fire somebody for doing this? Yeah, okay, that sounds great and all that stuff. But it just runs all over a media, whether it's sports media or anything like that. This is all they talk about. And then the divide that goes on between the blacks and the whites in this country based on this. And you can't have a real conversation on it and say, yeah, there is a problem in the black community, but you're not allowed to say it. So it's like they're just doing this, and we're like pawns to them. Meanwhile, this country is going to change dramatically, as it already has, more and more and more. So it's going to fall down to your kids to have to deal with it. So I have no issue when a millennial or somebody, the new generation, Generation Y or something like that, they blame people from my generation or my father's generation, saying that we basically gave them all these issues. I always defend our generation because I think we did a lot of good things when it comes to civil rights. We screwed everything with the state, social welfare state, but it's like it's the same thing over and over again. And I try to not. I don't want to go, oh God, there's a thing going on here. That the media that's doing it and who runs that, and you don't want to keep going down that road. I want to get immigration solved. I want all this stuff taken care of because it will help everything else in the long run. We're never going to have an ethno-state in this country. As much as some of the people that talk on my channel saying that that's the only real way to go, I just don't think it's going to happen. But what I do think can happen is that we can limit immigration, that the black man and the white man can get together and say we need to stop this from happening because it's hurting us financially. And let people do what they want to do with free movement. If they want to be around people that look like them or the culture is what they want, then we should celebrate that. But we as European heritage or white people in this country need to stop having the white guilt and saying that there is no white culture when there clearly is. All you have to do is look around, go to Europe and see what we did over there, how we came here and braved all the shit to get here in this country, to take a country that was, I don't know what you want to call it, basically a bunch of Indians that were just not savages per se, but they were warring against each other, and they didn't build anything. And we came here and we settled this country and we conquered the Indians and we did all this stuff. And yes, we had slaves just like every other race had as well. But we need to go ahead and just celebrate like we used to do in the old days. Now, this sounds so traditional in a way, but we've taken that all out of school, and they want to blame everybody who's white. And I saw another clip, and I'll probably put it below. He doesn't talk too much about it, but he talked about the difference between Kanye West saying something crazy online, or like at the Oscars or something like that, or at the VMAs or something. And they're like, well, he's just black, and nobody's really going to care what he had to say. And then he compares him to Hitler, and that we as white people will somehow follow somebody like Hitler. There's no context to what he had to say about Hitler. And I'm not here to defend Hitler, but I will not defend him for the first 4 or 5, 6 years of his reign. I mean, obviously, the way he got into power, he was still voted into power, but there was some hoodwinks that was going on there. But once he got in there and how he changed the country around is one of the greatest things ever. At the end, nobody really knows what's going on with that. Personally, I wouldn't have interned millions of people, but every country did this. We did this with the Japanese. We did it to the Indians as well. It's not a white issue, even though everybody wants to think it's a white issue. So, I mean, still, everybody has this white guilt, and I want to get that off. And I guess the one gift that I want to give to generations after me is that to strip off the culture of Marxism. I don't care if you go to college, but always challenge what you're being taught. Just because the teacher has a book there that says this is how it is and how it really is in the world, and multiculturalism is the best thing ever and diversity is our strength, stand up, say that I have a different opinion. If they don't allow you to have that opinion, you need to go to a different university or get a trade and do something else. We have so much information online that you can educate yourself so much better. There are people out there who will talk to you, whether against what you have to say or not, in a civil type of environment. Your brain will flourish with that. You do not have to go to a brick and mortar university to get that information. The greatness of the universities in the old days was more of you got to meet people from different types of social places. The internet allows that. Now, the problem with the internet, it hurts us because we don't have that face-to-face communication, and that sucks. So you can't realize what somebody's saying because they're saying it online, even if you see them on Skype, it's a difference when you're right there in the room with them, and you can judge that person individually instead of a group. So people might get upset by what I have to say here, saying that I'm talking about all white people. I'm not. I'm talking about me as an individual, as the group, as European Americans, that we need to save that and cherish what we did. And there are a lot of good women out there that are doing things about this. Now, talking about this, is there are a lot of alt-right women who still somewhat follow the feminist guidebook posts. They think that feminism is about women's rights, and it's not. It's just another offshoot of cultural Marxism. And people who are part of that movement will not really look into that. They think that, oh, we're all together, all the sisters are together, and we're trying to do things to battle this mythical oppression against women in the United States. So I've talked about this many times on my channel. I don't want to talk about it right here. But if you're part of any type of ideology, people might say I'm in the alt-right. I'm a classical liberal, but people could say I'm in the alt-right because sometimes I say we and our. What I'm really talking about is my group identity. Now, you might call myself an identitarian. I don't know. But it's more than that. And I want people to challenge my viewpoints on this. I want, my son has the same type of, he doesn't view everything, I mean, he doesn't believe like I believe in everything, but he challenges my viewpoint. But if he doesn't research the subject, then I look at him and say, you've not done what you had to do. In order to somewhat sway the masses, you have to have the right information. If all of a sudden the person across the table starts calling you and says you're racist or whatever, then they lost. You won. You can go ahead and go home and say, well, you won that. You may not change his opinion, but almost everybody through time and experiences will change their opinion at some point. It's rare that you find somebody who is a really radical leftist when they're 18 become that way their entire life. They change and trend more conservative later at night during their life. Some don't, and there are a lot of people on the right that have become more liberal. And I think that we need to get past Republican and the Democrats. I think that really what we have to do is talk about what's important. And if you're an American and you want more jobs and something like that, we need to talk about that instead of fixating on Hollywood. And here's a guy that loves movies, and I mean, I'm thinking, should I go through all my Blu-rays and see anybody that actually was from Weinstein's group? Should I just get rid of them? And I'm like, and then I have no respect for any of them anymore. None of them. I don't. Maybe some of the conservative guys I might. And there was that one clip where Harrison Ford was giving the Oscars to what's his face, Polanski. Of course, he wasn't there because he's a fugitive from law, and he's sitting up there on everybody's tapping for Polanski, and he's just sitting there and he's looking out at the crowd, and he's like, in his mouth is, and he can't believe what he sees. And I'm saying that Harrison Ford is some staunch conservative, but I think he's more on the same level as me. He's probably a classical liberal, and he can't believe what he's seeing. Now, before I let on this, I want you guys to understand that I would never support what this guy did. Now, I'm talking about Weinstein again, and I'm talking about any man that does this stuff with his power to do stuff like that. But we also need to be clear that most women understand the social contracts that we have, and women do it when they're in power as well. Maybe do it a different way, but they clearly do it. And they also do, they select against the biases that they want. So I don't have any respect for these women to continue on with their career without ever telling this issue to anybody. It just shows that women are not, they could give a shit about the other women that are trying to go for the same part. The only time they actually like each other is after they have some sort of fame, and then they don't have to worry about it so much. But before that, they're like men. They want to do what they have to do, and it's more of a, they do it differently than we do. We do it in your face. They'll do it behind your back. And they know they can manipulate people like Weinstein. As much as the power that he have, they're going to say in this, the feminists will say that the only person in that room had any power is Weinstein. That's not true. Clearly the woman who had their body could be used as a bait for him to put them in a different area, have a better part. But that's been going on forever. And nobody wants to talk about that because we want to treat women that they're not at the same level as men. In some ways they aren't. Some ways they're just so much better than us. We're totally different. Anyway, that's all I want to talk about today. Let me know what you think below. Again, of course, I talked about at the end about Weinstein again. And it just shows how I talk about I've been trying to just strip off my white guilt and cultural Marxism, but it's still there. And it's just how the media works and how we consume it. And instead of, I think a lot of people have been talking about the NFL and people are not watching anymore. So guys are taking care of their family on Sundays and they're going to church or they're playing out in the sports and in the reads and they're doing things different than watching the NFL. And maybe that'll be a good thing overall. As much as I like football, I haven't watched it. Anyway, that's it. You guys have a good weekend. Let me know and share this and like it and subscribe if you want. I'm at almost up to 150. That's be nice if I get up there. So you guys have a good day and we'll talk to you later. Bye.